warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start this morning, I would like to invite everyone in this hall for us to observe a minute's silence in remembering those who perished recently, not just in Paris, but also in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria, in all the wanton acts of destruction, wanton acts of evil that will have us cower in fear. But we remember them because we remember that we are here to preserve and persevere, and that we are here to stare down terrorists and groups that seek to destroy the peace in our world. So ladies and gentlemen, a moment's silence for those who have perished. The Honourable Datuk Sri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Honourable Ministers, Members of Parliament, Excellencies, dignitaries, all young leaders, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of Malaysia, on behalf of the Ministry of Youth and Sports in Malaysia, I'd like to welcome all of you for coming here today. A big selamat datang, a welcome in the Malaysian language, national language. It's going to be an exciting next 3 days where we have young leaders from not just the ASEAN countries, but also from our dialogue partners. And I'm happy to welcome all our friends from ASEAN countries, dialogue partners, to come together with us and in trying to chart the future of ASEAN. All the young leaders from Malaysia, I'd like you to give a big round of applause for our delegates from ASEAN, first of all, from Brunei Darussalam, big round of applause to Brunei. Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and our friend from Southeast Asia, Timor-Leste. Our dialogue partners who have come from around the world, from Australia, Canada, China, India, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea, Russia, and the United States. During this opening ceremony itself, we have almost 2,500 Malaysian youth leaders from our Malaysian Youth Council, our youth parliamentarians, our Perdana Fellows, political leaders, young political leaders, and many, many more that are here with us this morning. And I'd like to record a big thank you and a big round of applause for our guest of honor, none other than the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia, Datuk Sri Dr. Ahmad Zahid. Thank you, sir, for taking time off to be with young people today. It's great to note that these 300 participants from 14 countries will be part of our ASEAN Young Leaders Summit over the next 3 days. We've got a fantastic mix of attendees from different backgrounds: government leaders, civil society, entrepreneurs, young professionals, and this is a great indicator for the summit, for us to get a unique mix of individuals together to come up with common goals. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here over the next few days to do one thing: to chart the future of ASEAN by getting youth to drive the ASEAN community. Why youth? Why young people? Why is this so important? One very important fact: 60% of the ASEAN population are below the age of 35. 60% of us in ASEAN are below the age of 35. We are not the future. We are the present. We are here, and we're here to make decisions and to suggest where we go forward as ASEAN. That's why I chose the theme, Youth Driving the ASEAN Community, to show how important young people are to our region. Ladies and gentlemen, this, as the Master of Ceremony said, is a very, very important week for ASEAN. The ASEAN community that will be established at the end of this year represents a major milestone towards the journey of creating a truly integrated region, an integrated economic community, an integrated social community, and an integrated political and security community. As a regional grouping, ASEAN is now poised to strengthen and become a significant player in the international arena. Now, with Malaysia at the chair of ASEAN this year, it is with great pride that we will host the 27th ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur. In a couple of days' time, the leaders from across the world, from ASEAN and our dialogue partners, will descend in this very city to talk about the future of ASEAN and to talk about the future of East Asia. Now, in conjunction with this major summit that will take place, we found it opportune to host the ASEAN Young Leaders Summit, and in a small way, set the stage for discussions that will take place at the main summit. Why, you may ask, is ASEAN so important? Why is ASEAN punching above its weight? Why does ASEAN command attention, not just in the ASEAN region, but also amongst our dialogue partners and from other parts of the world? Now, I want you to do something with me, a thought experiment. Imagine ASEAN was one country. Imagine the 10 ASEAN countries became one country. Now, if ASEAN was just one country, we would be the biggest crude palm oil producer in the world. Some of you have seen this before. This is a slide from the Economic Intelligence Unit. They brought together all the ASEAN countries into one. We would be the #1 crude palm oil producer in the world. We'd be the #1 natural rubber producer in the world. We'd be the #1 in terms of size of Muslim population. And we'd be #1 in terms of the issuance of Islamic bonds or sukuk. If ASEAN was a single country, we'd be #2 in the world in terms of value of foreign direct investment. We'd be #2 rice producer in the world. We'd be #2 size of Buddhist population. And most importantly, we'd be #2 in terms of monthly Facebook users. So stop updating your Facebook profile. We'd be #3 in the world in terms of overall population, mobile phone subscription, size of Christian population, production of natural gas and coal. Our GDP will be the 7th largest in the world, and ASEAN's share of global GDP is growing. Our market capitalization in aggregate worth $2.2 trillion would rank in the world's top 10 markets. ASEAN is the 5th largest market in the world for sales of cars, trucks, buses. It would have the 3rd largest foreign exchange reserves in the world, the 4th highest gross national savings, and the 5th highest projected GDP in 2018. We are far stronger than we are alone. ASEAN packs a punch far greater than the sum of its parts. This is how great ASEAN is, ladies and gentlemen. But you know what? ASEAN cannot just rely on government-to-government relationship. We can't just rely on the diplomatic communiques. We can't just rely on the political leaders to have their summits. It should be more than that. It should be about real relationships, business-to-business relationships, people-to-people relationships. In business, ASEAN is changing the way companies operate across the region. Take, for example, 2 companies that started in Malaysia. CIMB Bank has 1,080 branches across ASEAN. It's no longer a Malaysian bank. It's an ASEAN bank. It's a Southeast Asian bank. AirAsia, which began in Malaysia, but is now not only AirAsia Malaysia, it's also Thai AirAsia, it's also Indonesia AirAsia, it is now Philippines AirAsia. The focus is no longer the home country, but it is ASEAN, and it is the region. We also need for people-to-people understanding, people-to-people relationship. That's what we're here doing today. But we also need iconic events, things that bring our people together, especially young people. And I have 2 great examples in sports, because I'm sports minister as well. The Southeast Asia Games is not only about the celebration of our athletes. Its main purpose is to celebrate our ties and to bring our countries together every 2 years. A wonderful, wonderful event, the SEA Games, which sees ASEAN come together as a family. And one project that we're all working on, that we agreed on at the ASEAN Sports Ministers meeting recently, is that we want to bid for the 2034 FIFA World Cup in the name of ASEAN to bring excitement to this region. And to be honest with you, if we win that bid, that will probably be the only way ASEAN countries can make it to the World Cup right now. But this is trying to find iconic events to make ASEAN relevant to people, to make ASEAN relevant to young people on a day-to-day basis, on something that they can relate to, like sports. And moving forward, building on the government-to-government relationship, building on the business ties, building on the people-to-people relationship that we have and that we are starting today with a new generation of young leaders. We must strive for growth in ASEAN underpinned by certain shared values. And I think that is something that needs to guide this conference over the next 3 days. The shared values that I want to talk about, it's not an exhaustive list. But the 6 that are up there on the screen are key ones that I believe are important for us to chart the future of ASEAN over the next few years. 1, it's the value of innovation and creativity. We must strive to push our governments to continue to invest in education, to invest in technical and vocational training, to invest in science, to invest in research, so that ASEAN countries, whether they are at the forefront of economic development or they are those who are still developing, can remain competitive, and the ASEAN region is seen as a region of innovation and creativity. Secondly, we need to have empathy. We need to have empathy between ASEAN countries and within our own countries, to put ourselves in the place of other people. This is the best way to resolve disputes. This is the best way to avoid conflict, by having empathy to understand where the other person is coming from. Third, we must have a commitment towards social justice to ensure that the gap between ASEAN countries and within our own countries are closed, to ensure that marginalized communities are assisted, to ensure that no one is left behind. And this value must guide young people in trying to create an ASEAN community that is grounded on social justice. We must commit ourselves to good governance. What is ASEAN if not good governance? Respect for individuals, respect for its citizens, respect for the freedom for us to choose our future, and respect for law and the rule of law. We must be a region that shows that we believe in the hallmark of good governance within our countries. We must also have a strong understanding and respect for sovereignty. We want to make sure that the young generation of ASEAN leaders understand that ASEAN works when we respect the sovereignty of each other. We do not want ASEAN to be a flashpoint for geopolitical rivalry. We don't want ASEAN to be a region where we squabble over territorial disputes. We want to ensure that we focus on respect of sovereignty through multilateral consensus by discussing. This is the ASEAN way. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it takes a long time, but this is the ASEAN way that has worked for decades in ensuring that ASEAN is a zone of peace, prosperity, and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, I've spoken at length about how great ASEAN is. But it's not all rosy. There are fundamental challenges that we face as an ASEAN region. And some of these challenges, again, not exhaustive, but for example, in parts of ASEAN, poverty persists, and economic growth has been accompanied by rising disparities in income and opportunities. Approximately 179 million workers, or 3 in 5, are in vulnerable employment, and 92 million earn too little to escape poverty in ASEAN. This is just one challenge. There are many, many more existing challenges that will need a fresh perspective in bringing out solutions. Which is why we, the young people, the driver of change, are here at the summit today to address problems faced by young people: employment, cost of living, housing, poverty, education, access to sanitation, water, access to electricity. These are the issues that we need to address. Now, ladies and gentlemen, unlike any other summit, we strive to provide a holistic experience for all the delegates who come to Kuala Lumpur today. I don't want you to just listen to experts, sit in the hall for 3 days, and enjoy the air conditioning in the conference hall. I don't want you to come here to listen without being listened to. So we've divided the summit into 3 sections: the plenary, the peer-to-peer dialogue, and the community-based project. Today, for the plenary, you'll be listening to prominent leaders and subject matter experts, and you'll be sharing with them your thoughts about what they have to say. Tomorrow, we'll be having the peer-to-peer dialogue, divided into two parts. In the morning, first, scenario planning, where we'll give you a scenario to think your way out of. And secondly, where we ask you to think about recommendations that you want to propose to our leaders. After that, tomorrow afternoon, we're going to send you out there. I don't want you to stay in the conference hall. I want you to send you out there onto the field so that you can enjoy what it is to be a young leader that not only thinks, not only talks, but walks the talk and act out your vision. I'll send you out there with 13 of our experienced young NGOs in Malaysia to meet the local community based on our 4 pillars, to apply your theories and your assumptions that you've talked about over the last 1.5 days, but go out there to the field and see the real world. All these sections, different format, different experiences and deliberations, will lead to one final outcome from this AYLS that I want to be the lasting legacy of this conference, which is the ASEAN Youth Manifesto. On Saturday, when the leaders gather for the ASEAN Summit, we've been given the honor to hand over the outcome of this AYLS to the chair of ASEAN, the Prime Minister of Malaysia. The Youth Manifesto for ASEAN will be our document from the AYLS that we will be handing over to the leaders. I want it to be feasible, I want it to be concrete, I want it to be detailed recommendations that we're going to think about over the next 3 days. I don't want motherhood statements. We want ASEAN to be peaceful. We want ASEAN to be conducive to young people. We want ASEAN to encourage entrepreneurship. That's motherhood statements. I want us to drill down on some concrete proposals. It should be detailed. For instance, for leadership, you can suggest, as an example, an ASEAN Youth Assembly, which convenes twice a year, so that young leaders can exchange ideas. For entrepreneurship, an ASEAN SME fund, just for the young entrepreneurs, where funding comes between the government and also the private sector. For volunteerism, maybe the setting up of a volunteer corps that can be deployed in times of disaster at ASEAN countries. In education and employment, maybe the teaching of English, a program in rural areas in ASEAN countries. These recommendations will be tested and challenged on Friday. We only want the best of the best to be presented to the Prime Minister of Malaysia as Chairman of ASEAN at the opening ceremony of the ASEAN Summit. Because this is it. Government will only take us seriously when we, the young of ASEAN, are ready. And I do think we are. And AYLS will show that ASEAN youth and the youth from our dialogue partners are ready to take ASEAN forward. Ladies and gentlemen, my call to action to you is this. Take every opportunity to make the best of this summit. Not just in building relationships, but proving that your generation and the youth of ASEAN can be thought and action leaders in crafting the next chapter of ASEAN and its dialogue partners. Enjoy your stay in Kuala Lumpur. Terima kasih. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Yang Berhormat Hari Jamaluddin, Minister of Youth and Sports Malaysia.